At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Peggy Sealfon, how are you doing?
I am doing awesome. I'm so happy to be here with you again. This is fun.
Oh, yeah. It's great to have you back on the show. Last time we talked about a bunch of different things, and today we're going to talk about some new things. And what I'd love for you to do is to kind of share with the audience who you are, how you've reached this point in your life, and talk about a couple of the books that you've written, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. So I am a lifelong seeker. I love learning and developing new strategies. And I've really been trained in ancient wisdom teachings and modern science and technology. So I've blended those two areas, studying with great masters in the world, to really deliver personal development for clients, as well as really just helping people achieve better health, better well-being, and physically, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, every aspect. So my first really best-selling book is Escape from Anxiety, because what I found was that I was suffering from a lot of anxiety, which is what set me on this path. And I needed solutions. And as I found the solutions and found that they worked, I thought, other people need to know this. And so Escape from Anxiety, Supercharge Your Life with Powerful Strategies from A to Z, are simple bite-sized techniques that people can read through and pick and choose what they can try, what resonates with them, and what they can use in their lives. And a lot of my path actually was precipitated by training with a world yogic master, Sri Amritji, and he's known as Yogi Amrita Sai. And he really opened my eyes, and my third eye especially, to see beyond, to really understand how to manage anxiety in a different way. And he set me on that path so intensely that I ended up working for 10 years with him on a book that is called Embodying the Power of the Zero Stress Zone. So that was a great journey, and it's really been exciting to work with him. I'm now working on another book with him, and the man is 91 years old, but he is truly an enlightened master and clear as a bell, and just functions on gamma levels more than anybody else I know in the world. So it's been really an honor and a privilege to work with him.
Well, and that's amazing. As I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, I'm over here in Thailand right now, and it is just amazing me, the culture of the Buddhists and the meditation that they go through, and to see these people who, in many cases, are so poor that, in the US, we would look at that and go, wow. And yet here they are, smiling, happy, and seem to be very, very okay, and not a lot of stress in their lives. And I know that may be a generalization, but I've seen it enough that I recognize that there's some things going on that we can learn from these people that really can help to remove that stress and to help us to feel that sense of peace. That's kind of the goal that I set for myself while I'm over here for a few months, is how can I achieve a greater sense of peace through meditation and through some of those types of things. So let's talk a little bit about what are the real life effects of stress. And let's talk about that first, and then we can talk a little bit more about how we can overcome that and so forth.
How to manage it. Yeah, I love that you're in Thailand. That is so cool. I want to beam myself over there. I think stress has really taken over humanity and fears. We are living in very uncertain times, and they're kind of accelerating. And so I think that what I see, especially my clients, is just total fear. And when we get into that fear and stress level, we're really not functioning at our best. In fact, we're hardly functioning at all. And so what happens when we're stressed is it creates tension physiologically in our bodies, and our bodies stop working properly, because stress was meant for short bursts. so that we can survive and manage to live through to the next moment and get away from that ferocious tiger. It's the fight or flight mechanism that's a biological built-in, technique that we just have naturally. The problem is we're in constant stress now. And so when you are stressed, all the energy goes into your extremities, so you can run away or fight or freeze in place. And so there's a lot of tension in that, but it's only meant for very short bursts, and then you're supposed to recover. We're not recovering. We're in that heightened stress constantly. So what's happening is we're energy, and we're in this energy field, and the energy is being siphoned away so that we have the strength to do what we need to do to survive. And it's taken away from non-essential biological functions like our digestion. I was just on a call last night where we were talking about people with so many digestive issues. That's why, because you're so tense and stressed. People get headaches, people get a lot of physical symptoms. And guess what? That unrelenting stress shuts down the immune system. So you're going to get sick. It leads to dis-ease. And it's just a phenomenon that is very true. And a lot of people, to be honest, Doug, they don't even realize they're stressed because it's become such a norm for them that they just live at that level until something happens and suddenly they're sick or they have an accident or, now they've had the wake-up call. So it's very paralyzing and very unproductive to stay in that state.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of times people don't realize also, even in relationships with friends, significant others, family, when they're experiencing all of that stress, all of a sudden that reactiveness comes out much more than normally it would because they're feeling the stress. And even though they may not, correlate the stress that they're feeling with whatever is happening at that given moment, the reality is that stress is always there. So, the fact
Absolutely.
that, relationships with family, with significant others, with friends, as well as you say, the health issues that can come. And, medicine has now shown the relationship between stress and all of these various diseases and health issues. So it's really something I think that's so important to talk about. And, there are so many different approaches that people have to try to reduce stress. And I think some work, some don't work. And maybe for some people, it depends on what they're looking for. But one of the things that I have found is this constant sense of meditation and mindfulness and what that can do. Would you mind sharing with the audience what your experience with that is, particularly as you've done some of these studies and writing these books?
So much goes into that. But as I mentioned a moment ago, the first step is really awareness. Most people don't accept that they're stressed. They just know they don't feel good, but they're not really realizing what this conditioned patterning of being in stress has done to them. So really the first step is awareness. So when you say mindfulness, that really is important to, pay attention on purpose. And when you are stressed, then you can develop what I call interrupters that stop that pattern, because stress becomes a habit. I work with a lot of clients with like post-traumatic stress disorder. And what I find is that they keep defaulting back to that stress place in terms of coping skills because they haven't developed other coping skills. That's been their skill. They just go right into that panic attack or stress. And so they're just not functioning well. So meditation is another level. So
okay, I want to go back to awareness for a minute. I'm going to
okay,
interrupt you here for a minute because
absolutely.
A lot of
It's your show.
a lot of people talk about awareness, and what I find is people go through life not being aware. But the question is, for those that are listening today to the show, what are some of the signs that they can see that suddenly will help them to become aware that, okay, you know what? Seeing these different signs in my life tells me that I'm experiencing some stress. So now I've got to really focus on that and figure out what's going on.
Wow, there's so many symptoms that come up. So not sleeping, developing insomnia where your thoughts are just running away with you all the time and you just can't relax. constant exaggerated worries, not being able to eat or overeating, emotional eating, just not being able to really make decisions because you're not sleeping well and you're not managing the stress very well. What are some of the other things? I mean, illnesses, headaches, backaches. A lot of the aches and pains can really be completely related to stress. In fact, the American Institute of Stress did a study, and it showed over many, many years that 70 to 90% of visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related symptoms. People feel like they're
Wow.
having, heart attacks, or, it's all that tension. And for your listeners or viewers, they can feel it for themselves right now just by tensing their hands into fists and holding that tension, and then take a deep breath in and hold your breath and hang on to that and notice how that feels in your body. You'll feel like you're blocked, like the energy is no longer flowing, which is exactly what's happening when you stay in that high stress level. Your body is not functioning properly. You're not optimizing. And so you're starting to develop blockages. And it can be from holding on to emotions, it can be from relationships. But again, with awareness, that is the big, huge leap into understanding and accepting that, okay, wait a minute, I am not reacting well to this situation. I'm feeling uncomfortable. What can I do about it? And then that would be the next step.
Okay, great, great. So let's talk about what are some of those steps. There's a lot of different things that people can do, and based on your experience, I don't know that one thing fits all people. I think that there are different approaches based on the personalities and how they're approaching things. What have you found are some of the ways in which people can get help or help themselves to reduce that stress?
So it really, as you say, it's so individualized because, excuse me, what works for one person may not work for another, but what works for everyone is breathing. So when you're like out of control and you're feeling worried and you can't figure out what to do next, if you just pause and take some very slow, deep breaths, just breathing in slowly, breathing out slowly, that calms the nervous system. Another really quick solution is just to do a big yawn, or a big sigh. Just breathe in and and that helps release that tension level. Now, it's only momentary, so it's just a short intervention. And to do something longer, you really want to begin to quiet your mind. And in mindfulness, we talk about not suppressing your thoughts, but learning to be in harmony with those thoughts. So you just accept them and become the observer. So now in yoga, with Yogi Amrit Desai in particular, it's really about becoming witness, because you are not your thoughts, you're not your body, you're not your name, you're not your bank account, you're not any of those things. You are the observer. You are separate. So when you begin to observe and see, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm in such stress, look how tight I am. Now you can really begin to let go of that by, again, I love breathing, because one of the key things to really managing the anxieties, the stresses, the fears is being present, being, as Eckhart Tolle says, the power of now. And you can't really breathe in the past, and you cannot breathe in the future. So breathing really does bring you present and allows you to be right here, right now. And again, I have clients who have really crippling anxieties and difficulties. And when we just together do a breathing exercise for a few moments and bring them back to the present, they feel good. They're okay right in that moment. They're all right. They can handle life. Everything's good. So then it's teaching them to expand that experience and take it now into the next moment without me, and the next moment after that, and be able to use that in their lives to mitigate those panic attacks or those moments where they're just feeling out of control. And we can each do it, but the bottom line is it takes practice. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to do that, and then it happens. You have to begin to pattern it into your lifestyle. And, you know, in the neurosciences, we've learned about brain plasticity, that you can change these habits that aren't serving you, and you can groove new habits. But it does take 30, 90 days to do that. So you have to commit to it. You have to be vigilant. And believe me, it's worth it, because you become happier, more productive, your relationships get better, your work gets better, everything improves when you are able to really manage with more empowering skills on a day-to-day basis. It changes everything.
Well, and you know what's interesting, not everyone, but so many people are so focused now on their physical health. And so they get out and they were exercising for an hour, for half an hour, for 2 hours, whatever that happens to be. And yet, how often do people take the time to really reduce that stress, take the time to do that breathing, take the time to do that? Because physically, it's one thing to get into shape, it's another thing to get into that mental state of peace and lack of stress. You know, when we talk about mindfulness, would you mind defining for the audience, based on your experience, what is the meaning of mindfulness? So as we use that in our discussion, people will understand what we're talking about.
Right. So John Kabat-Zinn, who basically coined mindfulness way back when at Harvard, talks about it as paying attention on purpose without judgment, as if your life depends on it. So it's a non-attachment to the moment. It's just, again, coming back to being witness or observational and just being in the moment. And so to develop mindfulness, and that might help your listeners or viewers understand this even better, you can use your senses. Our five senses can bring us present very quickly. So if you're washing your hands, mindfulness would be really paying attention instead of thinking about, okay, what am I going to have for dinner? Or, oh my gosh, I forgot to pick up my kid at school. You know, instead, you're paying attention to how does that warm water feel running on your hands? So you're activating your senses and you're really being very present with that feeling. So tasting, eating something without being emotional eating, but those types of moments can help bring you present and activate that sense of mindfulness. So that can be a good training ground to begin to enter into that state of mindfulness.
Okay. And you know, what's interesting is so often, as you had commented, you know, we're trying to develop that sense of mindfulness, that peace, and get all the rest of the stuff out. And then thoughts just keep coming in. So
Right.
when we're mindful, what do we do with those? What do we do when all of a sudden all of these other thoughts start coming in again to us? How do we handle that?
That's a really good question. Do you know that we have over 2,000 thoughts every hour? That's a lot of thoughts running through our brains.
Oh, yeah.
And what's also interesting is we are wired as human beings for negativity. So most of those thoughts, a big percentage of them are negative. And why is that? Well, we are wired for survival. So we watch for all those negative things to see, is there any danger? A lot of our thoughts are dangerous because we are creating them. We are creating our own world. And when you begin to become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking, you can begin to change it. Let me give you a quick example, because this was very palpable for me. This was quite a few years ago. I was playing singles tennis at night, and I don't like playing at night. And my team threw me out to play singles. And I was playing a woman who was 20 years my junior. We were playing on red clay, which makes the ball really hard to see. She was left-handed. She was making bad line calls. And I was self-destructing. I was telling myself, I hate playing at night. Oh my gosh, she's so much younger. I can't do this. Why did I agree to do this? I hate myself for doing this. Suddenly I realized, oh my gosh, I'm losing so badly, and I'm beating myself with my own thoughts. So I just shifted. I changed my thoughts, and I just started reciting, I'm a person of great value, and I will exceed my expectations. And I just kind of kept repeating, I'm a person of great value and I'm doing better. And I'm an expression of the divine. And actually, as I shifted into saying I'm an expression of the divine, I started feeling stronger. I started feeling more powerful. And guess what? 2.5 hours later, I walked off the court victorious. And it was just because I changed my mind. I changed my thoughts. And we all have that capacity. It's just starting with awareness again and then noticing, oh my gosh, why am I telling myself that I'm valueless or that I can't do this? I'm self-destructing and I'm hurting myself by doing that. And we each need to care about ourselves a little bit more and love ourselves and give ourselves good input and positive input. So I've developed a whole thing of affirmations and using positive statements that just help reinforce. And I've even had clients like who have been doing like cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'll say to them, well, when somebody asks you, how are you feeling? Just tell them, oh, I feel fine. And this one young man, he was 19 at the time, he said, you want me to lie? And I said, no, just try it. I just want you to try saying that and see how it feels. And within a few days, he was suddenly feeling fine. And his father called, and his father didn't even recognize his son because he was so bubbly and I'm feeling great. And it just took changing that mindset. But again, it takes practice. It doesn't happen in an instant. It takes really paying attention to what you're telling yourself and change that.
And what would you suggest to people as far as focusing on that? How much time during the day should they devote to that mindfulness, to that sense of just really focusing on the breath and focusing on, a sense of peace and eliminating some of that stress from their lives? What would you suggest as far as a time frame?
So I'm a big advocate of not having to set aside big chunks of time to do this because nobody has the time. Nobody wants to do that. So what I highly recommend, and it's very individualized, is really to do it throughout the day and particularly begin to do it when you're feeling stressed. You're in traffic, you're late for an appointment. That's the time not to tense up. You can't do anything about the traffic. So let go of that tension, do some deep breathing, and focus on something positive. Look out at the trees that are surrounding you rather than the traffic that's blocking your path. So you can change any moment. And so if you begin to condition yourself to do that throughout the day, at the end of the day, you're going to feel a whole lot better. And the other thing to really do, I'm going to toss this in really quick at the end of the day, is write down 3 things you're grateful for. So no matter how difficult the day has been, how many challenges you've had, just take 3 minutes to write down 3 things that happened during the day that you're grateful for. Because what that does is it begins to wire you to see the things that are positive and that you're grateful for. And that will help you on this path throughout each day, because you'll begin to notice, oh, gee, I'm going to write that one down tonight because I'm really grateful that happened. Wow, that person just was so kind to me. And I'm so pleased that I had that experience. So then you start, like law of attraction, you begin to attract more and more of those experiences because now you're seeing them more. So instead of just focusing on that negative and what you're worried about and what's difficult, now you're changing the pattern and you're seeing the things that are really good in your life, that are really positive. And that begins to really change the circuitry in your brain.
Well, and I love that, because you're right. So often people try to set aside some time in the morning or time in the evening, and yet in the middle of the day they experience all that stress. And to be able to do that on a regular basis, to just stop for a minute when you're feeling stress and focus on that breath, breathing in, breathing out, and focusing on that just for a few minutes. And as you say, when you do that, all of a sudden, as you're focusing on the breath, everything else seems to move away. Here's the other interesting thing, and you probably are familiar with this, but there's been some studies done, and there's some people out there that really advocate a very deep breathing type of thing and what it does to the pineal gland in the brain. And as people do that during the day, what they don't realize is they're taking in that deep breath and doing that a few times. They're literally instigating that pineal gland, which is the gland that then releases substances to help heal the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really does make a difference because let's face it, most of us don't breathe. We're breathing very shallowly. And if we're nervous in particular, now we're even more shallow and we're kind of hunched over. So our lungs are collapsed. So if you just stand up, watch your posture, take some slow, deep breaths, now you're oxygenating your cells and you're really breathing in this vital life force energy. We call it in yoga prana, in qigong, we call it chi energy, and we are all energy. And the problem or challenge is, I never like to call problems, is that when we're not breathing, we're not really being filled up with that energy, and we need that to function. And so when we're not breathing and when we're stressed, we're using up our vital energy in very unproductive ways. We're wasting it. And so we're harming ourselves by doing that. So again, comes back to mindfulness, awareness, and being able to take those deep breaths. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is in the neurosciences, the concept is, especially for brain health, to take a break from whatever you're doing every 90 minutes to 2 hours. Especially if you work at the computer, take a break, get up, stretch, do some deep breathing, and just change the energy, especially if you're sitting, which is really not good for you either. So being able to move the energy through is really important.
Well, and that's true. And you mentioned yoga. Now, I know that you talk a bit about integrative approach to yoga for improved benefits. What yoga? That's a tough one. I've tried it a few times, but there's so many different types of yogas and so many definitions of what yoga is. As you talk about integrative approach to yoga, what are you talking about here?
So my training has been with Yogi Amrita Sai, and he was one of the first to bring yoga to the West back in the 1960s. And what he has developed is an integrated Amrit method, the I Am Yoga method. And what he has done, which is really empowering, is he's given us a methodology to really connect with ourselves, mind, body, heart, and spirit, in a totally integrated way. And so his approach has been to develop two parts to each asana, each yoga posture. And it's not about the power, it's not about doing it perfectly, but it's really about observing, being the witness and being fully engaged in the experience. So the first part of the posture is hatha yoga, which is the traditional yoga postures that most people who do any yoga at all have experienced. So that's an active, intentional movement. The second part of every posture is Raja Yoga, where you pause, you close your eyes, you go inward, and you notice the prana, the vital life force energy, and how it's flowing through your body. And so that really gives you a chance. He calls it a meditation in motion or posture of consciousness. So it really allows you to feel what is going on in your body, because frankly, Doug, most of us function in our minds, our egos take over. And this is a way of integrating mind, body, heart, and spirit. And as you do the active posture, you do it fully and completely, but without getting edgy on the edge, without criticizing yourself. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, my side hurts. Oh, I can't, I don't have good balance. I'm not capable. Well, those are all those thoughts we were talking about a moment ago that's not what you want. So as you're going through it, it's not a matter of judging yourself. It's just a matter of being present with what is as is and learning how to accept that. And that allows us to come into the now, because what Yogi Desai teaches is that too many of us really are living in the past. Our fears and anxieties now are because of something that happened some other time. We might have been in a relationship with someone. And so now we've just met someone at a party, and he so reminds us of who we had this horrible experience with, and we hate this person we just met. What? That's not real. That's not as is. And so then what often happens is, because of these past experiences, now we're trying to protect our future, which hasn't even happened yet. So now we're, putting off our happiness or our well-being to some future point when everything aligns just right and we find the right mate or the right relationship. And now we're not in the present again. So yoga teaches us to be in the present, to accept what is as is, and to bring mind and body together. And what Yogi Desai does so brilliantly is he's brought it to a third eye integration. So the pineal gland is actually biologically like the eye, only
Yes.
it isn't connected by nerves, but it is our connection to our higher power, or to the energy beyond us that we are all part of, that we are all connected to. Dr. Joe Dispenza calls it the quantum field.
That's
But
right.
as we connect to that, or Dr. Bruce Lipton refers to it as this energy field. Some people call it God. I mean, it's whatever your interpretation is, but the point is, there is clearly something way beyond us. And when you begin to connect to that and recognize that you're part of that and you're contributing to that, and your negative thoughts actually are having a negative effect on that huge energy field. So when you change it to positive thoughts, it begins to have a different effect. And that's why, we're looking at our world right now, and we want peace. But as you pointed out, people go and exercise and then they go home and yell at their spouse. That's not peace. So the peace has to start within you, because you're part of that bigger energy field and you're influencing that energy field by your actions. So every action you take and make, you have to really be mindful about and pay attention so that you're contributing in positive ways, assuming that's what your intention is. That's my mission. I want to lift the world as much as I can in everything I do.
And I love that you talk about the quantum field and that energy and all of that that's out there. It's been very interesting here as I've visited different temples, and as I've started to study the lives of some of these incredibly honored individuals, not only the Buddha, but others who have followed after him, and listen to the stories of some of the miracles that they have performed as they got to that point of mindfulness and sense of peace, to the point where really they were not being affected by the outer world and the stress and so forth. All of a sudden, they're doing some things that are what we would consider a miracle. And how are they doing that? Because they're tapping into an energy. And as you say, Dr. Dispenza talks about the quantum field. It doesn't matter what you say it is, but realizing that there is an energy outside of us that we all have the ability to access. And as we access that in the right way, that is able to come in and heal us emotionally, heal us physically, heal us mentally. All of those type of things are able to be done as we really focus on that mindfulness and that sense, as you say, with yoga, whether it's yoga or a combination of yoga. Yeah, I've tried yoga. I'm sorry. but meditation and however that looks, it's amazing how people can tap into that and experience those miracles in their lives. Even as you say, it may be some of those subconscious limiting beliefs of experiences in the past as children or whatever, that all of a sudden they can be released and you can start to feel a greater sense of peace and freedom because you've been able to release those.
Absolutely. And Patanjali, the father of yoga, said stillness leads to seeing. So just by stilling the mind, quieting those thoughts, and being in meditation, even just for a minute, can begin to help you see the reality as it is, instead of all these filters of your past or even past lives that interfere with your ability to really perceive what really is happening. And we do create our own world. And Doug, I'm going to throw a little ringer in, because I've been working with a technology company for the last couple of years, and I'm seeing now we're developing new technologies that actually help activate even deeper changes on a cellular level that help our biology function with more energy and vitality. So this has been really interesting. The inventor, I think, is an alien or a time traveler from the future, but I am getting absolutely incredible results because I do have clients who, say they can't meditate. And even though I teach them techniques, they're still challenged. And so this technology is non-invasive. It uses light therapy, basically. And I'm having amazing results with it. And talk about healing. So I'm seeing a future, in biblical times, people lived to 800 years. I'm seeing a potential for longevity now with a combination of the ancient wisdom teachings, which clearly help heal and change things on a cellular level and connect us to the field. But I'm also seeing technologies now that are coming through that are available now that are really helping us live our lives with more vitality and more health. And when we're healthier, we're happier because we can do more and we can be in relationships without being burdens or without having such challenges that we can't enjoy the relationship.
Well, and you're right. There are so many new technologies out there. As you talk about light therapy, I know that's one technology. I actually know of someone back in the U.S. Who uses a very specific type of light therapy to help people, particularly young people who have experienced trauma to their heads, concussions, and they're seeing a direct relationship often between concussion and suicide, and they're having tremendous success in alleviating some of those issues with someone who's experienced concussion, whether it's in football or whatever that happens to be. I happen to come across an electronic device that has the ability to really help reduce some pain and chronic pain and those type of things that I've found to be very, very helpful. So you're right. It's amazing the technology that's out
This
there.
is the technology I'm using.
Okay.
It's really remarkable. And it's in Thailand.
Really? Okay.
It's available in about 140 countries now.
Okay. So for those of you that are not watching and just listening on podcast, she just raised her wrist and has something on her wrist.
It's a little patch, little white patch that is signaling my body to create certain responses energetically. So it's really a remarkable technology. And it was actually invented back at, phototherapy has been around forever, but this technology was applied back in 2004, developed for the Navy SEALs. So it was through the US government that this inventor started this, and now it's gone so much further and he's done so much more with it and is continuing. So it's quite remarkable to me to be involved.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, you teach in your Mind Body Fitness for Life program. What are some of the things that you teach in that program as you're working with clients?
So part of what I have recognized has been really important for people to embrace is a combination of lifestyle choices that help body and mind just function more optimally. So it's a combination of many things. We have, I feel, a medical system that's great for emergencies, but for real illness, it's just treating symptoms and it's just not looking at the root cause. And so the root cause is often an imbalance of one lifestyle element. And it could be from not getting enough sleep, which is really critical for restoration of body and mind, to not getting enough exercise to keep the body moving. Especially older people tend to get slower in getting out and moving, and just getting out and walking for 10 minutes can make a huge difference. And then nutrition is really critical. And this is where I see big gaps in the medical arena because doctors don't even study nutrition. And it is so important. And I'm seeing more and more, sadly, how corrupt our food systems are and how toxic so many of our foods are. So I'm a big advocate for really educating people, and it's a lot of what I do with my clients is making them aware of good choices, and making sure that they're really paying attention to what they're putting in their bodies, because food is medicine. It's light, it's energy, it's information, it feeds our cells, and it really helps clear the mind if you're eating the right foods, and mucks up the mind if you're not. Hydration is another important part. Many clients I've had really had anxiety because they weren't drinking enough fluids to keep their body and mind functioning properly. And they started suffering symptoms that they thought were anxiety or depression, and it was really dehydration. So simple, right? But major. So it seems to me that we have denied a lot of just our human biological needs in ways that have certainly not been productive for us. So really important to develop a balance. And of course, love, relationships are an important component of that. Connection, belonging, being part of something more than oneself, having friends, having family, really, really important. And I'm very fortunate in that, I don't know if you're familiar with blue zones, but I happen to live in a blue zone area. And this is an area where we really have healthy options more accessible. We even have what they call moai groups, which came from Japan, where groups of people get together to walk together once a week. And so they have their tribe that they go walk with. And it just helps encourage community, working together, as well as, benefiting your physical health by getting out and walking. So all of those things are really important. And lastly, one of the things that I'm a big advocate of is really getting out in nature. And I'm so envious that you're in Thailand, although I'm in Southwest Florida, which is also quite beautiful with palm trees and the Gulf of Mexico. And in fact, just 2 days ago, I was airboating in the Everglades with some scientists who were talking to us about the water systems and how all of that gets filtered through the Everglades. And I mean, that was just very, you feel spiritual when you're in nature, because that is that connection to that energy level, that quantum field beyond us. And it's always very harmonizing. So if someone isn't comfortable meditating, just walk out and look at the trees or look at the sky, and just do that for 5 minutes. And that's calming and comforting and energizing. So that can make a difference.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about nutrition. I've lived with high cholesterol my whole life, and I finally found a nutritional physician, MD. But like like you say, they're few and far between. And so every 6 months, he started having me move more towards this very specific type of program of eating more healthy foods, getting rid of some of the unhealthy foods, taking some supplements and so forth. And boom, there goes the cholesterol. It's just perfect. And we test every 6 months. And sure enough, it's just remaining in balance. And it's only because I've changed that nutritional experience for myself. And I think that, you've really hit on a key point there, that nutrition isn't just the only thing, but that there's all these elements that if people will just start applying them in their lives, it can literally change their health and their mental well-being and their physical well-being by doing some of those things.
It sounds like you've made major changes. I mean, being in Thailand, nutritional approach, that's awesome. Good for you. That's pretty great.
Well, I'm enjoying it. And, Peggy, this again, once again, I mean, you were on, how many years ago were you on? What was it?
It was in 2021.
Yeah, I was going to say at least a
Just
couple of years.
Yeah.
So this is great because we're talking about a whole different element here, but I appreciate so much. So I'd love for the audience to know, number one, how to find your books. Number two, how to find you if they feel like, what, I'd really like to talk to Peggy about what I'm experiencing, because I know you do that personal coaching too.
Yes, I do. So books are all on Amazon. So you can just look up my name and the books will come up. mindbodyfitnessforlife.com is the best place to just connect to my website. I have a lot of free things on the website, so please feel free to look around. Also on the new technology, You could go to liveyoungertoday.com and you'll learn about that. And that's, again, just, I feel like that's the future, and we have it right now, which I really love. So those are probably the best places to connect with me. And I'm more than happy to serve. I feel like that is my mission. And if as we do these programs, Doug, I just feel like, if one person benefits, gosh, we've made a huge impact. And so that makes me very appreciative to have this opportunity to share this with you and to be back on air with you. I remember having a great time a couple of years ago, and it's always wonderful to chat with you.
Well, and I appreciate you being on the show. So thank you so much. And folks, thanks for listening. Hope you're getting some key little ideas here that might be of value to you. And we look forward to having you join us again soon.